All right, we've got the tube mounted into the Donkey Kong cabinet, and I'm just going to say that tube was filthy. That was the first wipe down of the surface of the tube. That was the second wipe down, and finally I got it clean. Third wipe down, pretty much clean. But I did not know that tube was that dirty. I assumed I had wiped it down when I had stored it a long time ago, but no, I've been sliding it around on my carpet in the room here, and it's been filthy. But I haven't slid it around a lot because I know that there's soft lidded glass on the surface of a CRT, and you get just a just a little grain of grit or something underneath it. And I've got a bird right over here beside me. Yeah, I'm talking about you. And he dropped seeds everywhere, so there is a little scratch or two on the surface of that CRT, and I hope I didn't cause it, because I don't think I ever looked over that CRT very well when I stored it. But anyway, we've got it mounted in here, and I just wanted to show you some of the things. Excuse how dusty this Donkey Kong is, because I haven't touched it in a year, and I didn't really clean it up the last time I was working with it. I was just trying to see if I could get the original PCB to function correctly. I believe it needs all the capacitors replaced, and I have a good bit of them, but I haven't ordered like a professional Nichicon kit or anything like a well-known brand of capacitor. But I do have plenty of spares and some ceramic disc capacitors on this board that's in here. I stored it in here about a year ago was the last time I touched this thing. And I put the original board in here, and it was a 2-board set, and some ceramic disc capacitors I didn't have on hand that I ordered that need to be put on the board, at least a few of them, because it has a lot of those for, I think, the memory chips. And a high score save kit. It actually had a high score save kit in there. And those are okay, but I was having some problems, and I took it out and just put the processor in there by itself to see if that could straighten out some problems. But because I believe this game was playing blind when I got it, and it never had a monitor in it from the time I got it. But then later, after it set for like another year and I didn't have time to fool with it, it would come on sometimes or try to come on, and then you'd hear very crazy sounds like it wasn't booting. And I don't think it really was booting. So I'm going to try to do a cap kit and replace any little ceramic disc capacitors. I found a couple that were damaged on the board, and I don't think that was causing that issue, but it could have been. And I remember one, maybe 2 traces that to me looked like they had purposely been cut on that circuit board. And I'm going to try to just put a bodge wire on there and kind of connect those back together. I had read that there was one place that was very close to where I found those nicked traces that people purposely cut, because there was something about the sound that on certain board sets, people said that the jump sound didn't sound right or something, and people would purposely cut a trace or two. It was some type of modification. But even if that was done, it shouldn't cause the issues I was having. I might just undo those just by putting a bodge wire or 2 on there, or trying to bridge those traces where they've been cut, because it looks like it was done purposely with a knife. It doesn't look like anything that could have been done by mistake. Whoever had done it before had done a pretty good job. I don't know why they didn't put the piece of wood in there square. You can tell I'm picky, right? But anyway, the piece of wood looks like it's just been thrown in there and screwed down. But it was actually done pretty good. I think I had to tape up the original power wire, but I didn't replace it because it was just, the insulation was nicked. And I probably will replace it eventually. And, I just went through and checked a few things here and there. And then I left some wiring that I had taken loose in here. I left some of it in here that wasn't being used at the moment, because I had to rewire the marquee light. That's what that's coming from. I put a brand new marquee light in it, and this is an LED light. The original one in there, I think it had a little transformer in it, and it was open, so I didn't want to use it. It had the old fluorescent lights in it. I just went ahead and replaced it. I mean, I try to be a purist, but I can't always be with stuff like that. And I said, I don't want to put another one in there. I just stuck the LED. It's not one of the cheapest strip lights. It's actually like an under cabinet light, I guess, but it works off 120. And the original one probably worked off 100 volts, because all these Donkey Kongs, the power supply they provided, I think it was 100 volts to the Sanyo 20EZ monitors they came with. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, 100 volts to that special type of fluorescent light. But anyway, I switched that out. This right here is a Nintendo to Jammer converter board, and basically, it lets you hook up those types of Donkey Kong boards and stuff to a JAMMA connection. It already had this JAMMA wiring harness in it when I got it, Somebody had converted that, so I didn't have the original harness. It looks a little loose to me already. Maybe it just doesn't seat. It doesn't seat all the way down on there. I don't think there's a problem with this board though, but it has, you know, different things that you can adjust. It even takes control over, like, you know, controlling your volume and your colors and stuff like that. I think the original Sanyo 20Z had something for the audio built into the chassis for the monitor too. I haven't read up on the Donkey Kong stuff in a good while, but this is, you know, where the original PCB mounted. I think at one time there was a cage around it, but it didn't have one on there when I got it. But got a lot of wiring that I got to finish up for this. If I can't quickly get this original board set going, I'm not going to get rid of it. I will try to track down the problem and get it going. Now, while we're back here, I want to take a little gander here. You'll probably see through there and see my crazy bird over there. But you can see what we did with these brackets. And you might be able to tell now when you see it why I did these brackets the way I did. You see how this mounts up under this rail? This mounts up under the rail. So I had to have a flat surface to go straight between it. That's why I put this little bracket that, you know, kind of cinched the pieces together on this side, because it changes the surface by about 1/8 of an inch. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to tighten that bolt and that one down flush against this rail. And that's the way it connects. And the profile of this rail, it's like, it's hollow in the middle. So it's like, if you looked at the end of it, the profile is like a U-shaped. So it's hollow in here and you got the flat side here. So I needed my bracket to go right against it. So that's why I done that on this one. It bolted right up, no problems. I did have to hunt down 4 screws that would fit in these brackets, because the upper and lower brackets took the same thread type of screw, but they weren't with the cabinet when I got it. And I found an old bracket kit for hanging a flat screen LCD panel to a wall, and I had a bunch of leftover bolts in there, and it had 4 that were perfect for this. So I just got me some washers and added to it. I put some extra big ones here because, like I say, I don't know why the original monitors that were in the Donkey Kongs were mounted to the underside of this frame instead of having this like with the flat side up and mount it to the upper side. It seems like to me that would be better than hanging. It's like the monitor's hanging off of the bracket. It would be sitting on top of the bracket. So even if the fasteners failed, you know, just gravity would be holding it against the bracket. But that's the way they did it, and I just wanted to do it the same. So I want to show you the front now. Okay, here's the front of the monitor. And you can see there's our bottom bracket down there. And you can see kind of our scab, our support that we cut out of there to make this the proper width for mounting this vertically. And you can see, again, that's one of the 4 screws that I took out of the TV bracket kit that I had left over. And there's the other. And I just had some washers. I put slightly smaller washers on the front ones. I didn't think that needed as much care as the ones on top, which were actually hanging. And right here are the screws that come up from the back. And we just lost our light, but we're still recording. I told you my phone was getting low. And now you can see my ugly mug. Go get my ugly mug out of there. But anyway, I run the screws up through the back, and I let the thread stick out the front and put the taps on with the washers. That's the way all the 20EZs and other 19-inch monitors that I saw online were mounted. They had the nuts in the front, and I just kind of wanted to mimic that. It doesn't matter. You can put them either way you want. You can have the heads of the Phillips screws up here and the taps on the back, or you can have it around this way. The one good thing about around this way, I guess, is maybe it's a little easier to put a wrench or something on the front to loosen these and use a screwdriver behind there, even though you've got to have distance to extend the screwdriver back, unless you got a stubby screwdriver to kind of either hold that while you loosen the bolt, I'm sorry, the nut, or, you know, twist it or whatever. But anyway, I don't think you'll ever have to take them off again, because this bracket's on there pretty much permanently, and so is the upper one. And you can't really see the upper one now, because you see there's the rail. And you see now how it's a U shape. Sorry, I don't have my light anymore. But you can see over here pretty much what I was talking about if I get my shadow out of the way of the light in here. But it pretty much, I mean, nobody would ever look up in there to see that back one. And if you look from the front, you would see where I cut these and scabbed that together. But it is incredibly strong, and unless somebody was looking for something to nitpick about, they'd be like, oh, that looks fine. You know, it looks normal. But I'll tell you what, this is not as rusty as some of them I've seen. By the time the Donkey Kong cabinet gets this old, usually these things are all rusted up, and I pretty much got mostly new hardware on this. Newer looking anyway. But this is the Donkey Kong cabinet. Haven't really showed it to you. And I mean, check out the shape this thing's in. This is actually pretty awesome. And yes, it's still dusty. I haven't got to really clean it good. But that's the control panel. And here's the sides. And I'm telling you right now, I know that someone has redone this in the past. I got this from my friend. He goes by Adidas 1984X here on YouTube. And if you look on my channel where I've got some other channels linked, he's there if you want to look at some of his stuff. He has a lot of arcade gameplay videos. Yes, I know you're loud. And I mean, even the coin door looks like somebody has probably put new mechs in these. Now, these are old style. But that I seriously doubt that's the original mechs. It does have the original coin box made out of wood. That's original. It's missing the counter. I did buy a counter for a few bucks because I wanted to put that back in it. Not that it really matters, but I seen one for like $5 online and bought it, but it didn't come with a mounting bracket, so I need a mounting bracket to put that back in. And they're supposed to have a service switch there too, I believe. You can see the last time this thing was running was in 2010. It still has a sticker on it. I guess that's the licensing sticker. And see if I can show you the other side here. Kind of tight quarters here. I just pulled this cabinet around. But there's very few nicks on this cabinet, on the artwork and stuff. Now there's a little bit of just kind of dings and stuff here and there, especially at the back of the cabinet. This one, this side actually doesn't hardly have any. But the other side, it has some. And I don't know if my friend tried to kind of doctor it up. You can see right there. Or if it was this way when he got it. But it's got a few places. I would say somebody tried to do this like Bondo. But that doesn't look like Bondo to me. That feels and kind of looks like grout for tile. But this thing just got nicked up on the back. And it's got one little place right there. And you can tell someone has Bondoed this back corner. Well, you see this? That looks pretty bad right there. And this is the same material. It looks like grout. But then you see this pink stuff, and that looks like body filter. That looks like Bondo. So somebody has done that in the past, and it looks really good, to be honest. I mean, you come around, you can tell this corner has been hit because it's slightly raised right there. But yeah, the top of this cabinet's dusty as crap. Like I say, I haven't really even hardly done anything to this way over a year. But the thing is, I believe this entire cabinet was redone, and I think this used to be a Donkey Kong Jr. And what leads me to believe that is a couple things. One, you see that color right there? Let's see if we can get it to focus. I know it's dark. Focus. Don't know if you guys can see, but that looks like Donkey Kong Orange to me. But that's not all. I mean, everything looks too good on here. You can tell it's been at least vamped up and redone. I did get the marquee with it when I got it, but this upper bracket here that holds the marquee on was missing. I had to get it off of eBay. I think that was probably about $30. And it took me a while. I kept a watch on that for like probably close to a year to get one reasonable. I think I might have seen one or two come and go. People were wanting $50 or more. I finally got a hold of this one. It's in pretty good shape. I'm not saying you couldn't probably sand it down and recoat it with some paint if you wanted to, but it's not bad at all. And the marquee's in really good shape. Like I say, I'm not 100% sure if this is an aftermarket. And I'm not 100% sure about that. It might be a reprint and that too. All that, the artwork. And the side art, I believe, is probably reprinted because it's not sitting exactly the same on each side. I have heard that some of the originals were not put on exactly the same, but like the distance right here from the back to the front, I think it's a little less on the other side of the cabinet. This one's even on the left and the right pretty much. And on top, they're both 4 inches from the top. I think that's pretty close to what's standard. Some people have said 2 inches or so is closer. But also, big telltale sign. You see this sheet, which is not usually even legible or not even still on an old Donkey Kong cabinet? See what it says there? D Junior 1 or DJR1-UP 2PC board type. Okay, and it's got stuff on there like for the monitor, and I believe it might have, let me see. It talks about the video and about setting dip switches for, like, you know, your different bonuses and stuff like that, and the coinage. And that's all original to this, which is for Donkey Kong Jr. Now, you could say, well, somebody could have stapled that in there, which is true. But, where's it at? Right there. DJR1-UP. I've got to say, that's got to be the original tag for this game in there. It's got to be. So I think somebody took a Donkey Kong Jr., repainted it, put new artwork on it, put a Donkey Kong board set in it, and converted it to a switch and power supply, and the JAMA connector and all that. And I don't know what monitor was in this before I put this 19-inch tube back in there, but yeah, I believe this was a Donkey Kong Jr. But I still think it's in great shape, and I'll just keep it as a Donkey Kong. Here's the other side. I can get to it better here. You see, it's not really nicked up that bad. You got a couple, but I mean, those are really small nicks. And for the age of this game, I'm just inserting this clip to let you know that after thinking about it a little bit, what I said about this being original to the cabinet, there is, you know, a very good possibility that this came off of maybe a Donkey Kong Jr. cabinet, and this was the original paper, because I don't see any tearing where this has been restapled or anything, I don't believe. But just because this was original Donkey Kong Jr. paper and back door doesn't mean it couldn't have been taken off another cabinet and put on this one. You know, whether this is a Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong Jr. So it could have been possible, because people did that a lot. And also, just because this is here doesn't necessarily mean that this is an original Donkey Kong cabinet, because, focus up, please. Having the most trouble with this thing. There we go. This could have been taken off another cabinet and put on here too. I can't remember if they made kits for Donkey Kong Jr. I think they probably did. But I think I was watching John's Arcade, and he said that these sometimes were taken from kits or other cabinets and put on a different cabinet. And he said the telltale sign would be Phillips head screws that weren't filled in, because supposedly Nintendo would fill those in after they were put on, so they couldn't be easily removed from the cabinet. So I guess it was with solder or something. And also, take a look up here. Usually those nameplates are on the back of the cabinet, and there sure was one here at one time, because look at the screw holes, and you can practically see the outline before this cabinet was maybe painted and somebody rattle canned it or something. And underneath you can see 4 staples where I can't remember what the tag is, but there's I think maybe a little paper tag that's usually underneath the nameplate. So those 2 things were here at one time. Now, whether it was the exact same nameplate and the previous owner some reason took it off and put it on the inside, I don't know. But I just wanted to insert that in here. So with these old cabinets, I haven't dealt with these early 80 cabinets that much, and I'm real curious to learn more about them, and I'm trying to as we go. I'll show you just a quick clip of the chassis that's going to go back in here that was mated to this tube. It was mated to this tube when I originally got the main cabinet, which, you know, it was originally a bowling cabinet, and I crammed that 25-inch K7400 in there, and took this monitor out because it's just a 19-inch, and I wanted to really put a big screen in there. But the thing was, when I bought it, the bowling game that was in there, the display was beautiful on this too. You know, the chassis and everything worked great. And that chassis is basically, it's kind of a pretend K7000. It's made by Sharp Image, but from what I've seen looking at it, it has a layout that is very close to a K7000. But it was all working when I took it apart, but this has not been run in over 10 years, the tube or the chassis. So, you know, if it works and I don't have to recap it and all, that's great. I probably won't. But if it seems like it needs some doctoring up, hopefully I won't have to put a flyback in it, but I might put all new caps in it and just see how this goes. Okay, guys, this is the chassis that's going to go back into the Donkey Kong. And like I say, this is a Sharp Image. I can't remember the exact model, but it's a Sharp Image chassis. And I mean, take a look at that thing. That thing is actually clean as all get out. That's the way it was when I took it out of the machine. And it's got all kind of telltale signs that it's very similar to a K7000. I mean, there's the large resistor coming off that giant kind of frame heatsink there. If you get to looking, you start seeing the 4 diodes up there that form the bridge rectifier. It's just things are laid out very similarly. I mean, really. I mean, down to connections and where certain capacitors are. Those big caps there, they seem to be in the same place. The hot, let's see, on the other side of that heatsink right down in here. Can't quite get it. Well, it's hiding. All right, I'm going to show you. Right down there, pretty sure that's the hot attached to that frame or heatsink piece. Right on the other side of these big caps. That's kind of the same way a K7000 is laid out. Walk over here and say hey to Butthead. Yeah. You know you're a butthead, don't you? Always screaming at me while I'm working on stuff. But anyway, but that's the Donkey Kong, and hopefully I'll continue working on it and get it fixed up. Like I say, I may end up having to put the 60-in-1 in there, but I just kind of want to get it going because it's been sitting around here. Hasn't been doing anything. Guarantee that's a replacement joystick and replacement buttons. But like I'm saying, I think they did a pretty good job. There's a few nicks here and there, but I think it's in pretty darn good shape, and I'm not going to do hardly anything to it except get it working electronically. From the front, that's probably one of the only blemishes in this thing. Oh, by the way, the bezel, I do have the bezel. It's not the original that came with it. When my friend gave it to me, there was a big chunk. I can't remember if it was out of this lower left-hand side or if it was out of the lower right-hand side, but there was a big chunk that had been busted out. It's made out of like thick plexiglass, and it's got your artwork around it. You see that? That came with the main cab also. And this came with the monitor that we just put in this in the vertical orientation, but see, it was set up in the main cab like that. And it's exactly 24 inches across because that's the width of the main cab. Up and down, I think it's closer to like 20, 22 inches. But I did temporarily put it up in place to try to see if it would fit in the vertical orientation like that, you know. And it won't fit in the Donkey Kong. It's much wider. So, you know, anyway, I've got to trim the thing to make it fit. I can get it in there horizontally slightly, but vertically it will not fit at all. It needs something like 3/4 of an inch cut off at each side. But once I do, I think it can be put in here and it will cover up the edges of that without any problem. And then the artwork, you know, the front bezel, I'm going to call it, with the artwork around it, I had to get a replacement, and I think I bought that off of eBay too, and I think I might have paid $30-something, $40-something for that. I think I got a pretty good deal on it. It said it was an original one. I did notice that the plexiglass was, I'd say, a few millimeters thinner than what originally came out of this cabinet, but I don't even know if that was original. They both appeared to be printed right on the plexiglass to me. It didn't seem like sticker or anything like that, but I'm not super familiar with Donkey Kongs, and I'm still learning about them. But I do know it's in really good shape, and it's got good color, and I have kind of mocked it up and set it in here, and it does fit. And so shouldn't have any problem with that, and we've got the mountain hardware to put that in there. But it's in the next room, so I'm not going to go pull it out. You'll see it in the future on another video. But let you guys go. Talk to you later.